us. Thank you for this club, the members here tonight, and the work we're able to do in the community. Just pray that you'll watch over us and all that we do. Thank you for all the blessings you bestowed upon us. Just pray that you'll be with our first responders and those that are protecting us home and away. Just thank you for the gifts you've given us, our time tonight, and just pray you'll watch over us and all that we do. Please bless the food and nourish our bodies. We're going to pray. Amen. Amen. All right, so we're going to improvise by no flag. So find one on your phone or go to the Texas flag when we say the pledge. So join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so off to a great start. So thank you all for being here tonight. What a great program Bill has put together. So thanks a lot to Bill. Not only the program, but also cooking tonight. So hats off to Bill. Thank you, sir. So we have a couple, so before we do that, so traditionally when we have guests, you'll stand, say your name, where you live, kids, all that good stuff. We have a good amount of guests tonight, which is awesome. So if you don't mind, we're gonna recognize our guests. So if you, a member, brought a guest or know a guest, or you're responsible for them being here, if you would please introduce your guest. Go ahead.
Well, my son-in-law, Hunter Gottlieb. Hunter lives in Houston with my daughter, who's Abby, Hunter went to the University of Alabama. And he studies fracture. We all good fracture down in Houston.
Yeah, welcome. Thanks for being here. Yes, sir.
From Michael Claus, just the Zion Lutheran with my sons, Big Fan Barbecue, and Big Baptist League, walking out the door. Also Zion Lutheran.
Very good. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Yes, sir.
You might know this guy.
I do.
Kris Bone, White Rock dad, longtime friend, longtime neighbor, barbecue guy. Cool. So, say hi to Kris.
Welcome, Kris.
My buddy Todd Nicholson, White Rock Elementary, get some kids going to school together, so here to talk about barbecue.
Welcome, Todd. Thanks for being here. Bill.
All right, so we've got Garrett Golding, who's actually invited by Torres, who decided to bogue out this evening. So over here.
Sounds about
We've
right.
got Tommy Newman, who always whips my team's butt at White Rock U. And speaking of White Rock U, we got a good group of White Rock U folks here this evening. So.
Well, thank you all for being here. Sorry.
Sorry. So this is my neighbor Brody Flanagan, lives down the street. He's always got the smoker going and always asking about exchange, so I thought it'd be a good one for you.
Awesome. Thanks for being here. Yes, sir.
Chad Parker, new member since Oktoberfest. His paperwork's in process.
Hey.
All right. Thank you all for coming out and be a great program. So a couple quick announcements. I'm going to get out of the way. One of which, on your table, Packs for LH is back this year. So please consider a donation to PAX. It's a great cause. Basically, those that don't know, their mission is they will provide food for an elementary school over the Thanksgiving break. So it's a great program. We're happy to be part of it. So please consider donating to that. Mr. Conway.
Hey y'all, Tim Conway, Director of Youth this year for the Exchange Club. That's our monthly Youth of the Month and Character Council Awards. That's going to be coming up October 22nd. That's a big one for the club. We need membership to show up. It's really important. It's one of our biggest community-facing meetings that we have throughout the year. So that's going to be next Friday, October 22nd. And we had a little reschedule deal, so actually it's happening November 5th as well. So that's a 2-week gap there. But please come out. I'm going to try to mix up the format for the November 5th one. It might look a bit different than what we've seen before. So come on out. It's going to be a lot of fun. And thank y'all.
Yeah, so please do make an attempt to be out there for that. Principal Jones has been great this year, really revamped and put some energy behind that program. So please make an effort to be there. One last announcement. So those that were Oktoberfest in the Kids Zone, notice there was 2 65-inch TVs that you maybe watched some football on for about 3 or 4 hours. Well, we are having a drawing. Go over here and see Rick right here. Rick will tell you all the details on how to enter said drawing for a chance to win one of the 2 TVs. So go see Rick, and he will give you all the information there. I believe that's my announcement list. So with that, Mr. Boyd.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right. Thank you for that, Will. Yes, sir. Does anyone not have a non-paid IRS-free raffle ticket? Anyone at all? Okay, Mr. Lane. All right, so when Robert asked me to do this job, this idea immediately popped to my head, and Robert had to ratchet me back a couple of times. I wanted to do it like the July 1st meeting. He's like, no, people are on vacation and stuff. So I'm very excited that it's finally here. So our moderator this evening is Kelly Yandel. So I got to meet Kelly at Camp Brisket back when she was the chair of Foodways Texas, which proves that the Aggie and the Longhorn can be friends, especially when they've got a common love of stuff like barbecue. So Kelly is, what is Kelly not? Kelly is a photographer, she's a writer, she, I suppose, is a former blogger because she shut down the amazing Meaning of Pie, which still makes me sad. But traveler, rancher, recovering lawyer, and all-around cool person. I'm very blessed to call her friend, and I am very excited because she put together a panel that we could probably charge a whole lot of money for this evening. So I'm going to let Kelly introduce her panel. So Kelly Yandel.
Can everybody hear me? Yeah. My friends have brought some neat things to give away, and I brought 3 barbecue books that have meaning to me. So throughout this evening, we're gonna do some of that for fun. And why not start this way for this awesome Lockhart hat? If you have number 23. Who's 23? I can't have lost you yet.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay. I could have spoken to any of these 3 people for a full hour, and it's going to be hard for me to contain this, so I'll do my best. But these are, I'm not kidding, wonderful human beings in the Texas barbecue world. Jill Bergus, Lockhart, Lockhart's House. Kris Manning is Smokey Joe's Barbecue. Awesome. Alice.
Hi.
Hi. How are you?
Alice.
I have known of Alice for a very long time because she's just an awful lot of fun, but she is the spiritual and creative soul of Meat Fight. Is everybody familiar with Meat Fight? Okay? And this is important. So I'm going to back up just for a second and explain to you why I am such a barbecue fanatic. And I hope that we find some common ground here, and then we'll get into this. I grew up eating barbecue. I assume many of you grew up in Texas and have very early childhood memories of eating barbecue with your family, grandparents, at celebrations. That to a certain extent, growing up in Texas means that barbecue is part of who you are. And I always had that. At some point I got involved with a group called Foodways Texas, and we look at history and culture through the lens of Texas foods. Our job is to celebrate, to document, and promote Texas food culture. And it is an actual academic program run out of the University of Texas, membership-based. One of the coolest things we do, however, is this partnership with Texas A&M University, where we have barbecue summer camp and Camp Brisket at the Rosenthal Center on the campus of Texas A&M University, where we take 2 days, 2.5 days, and talk about nothing but brisket, maybe one of the most iconic bits of Texas barbecue. And in the summer, very hot, very nasty in College Station, we do barbecue summer camp, which is a 3-day program where we talk about all the proteins. And we do everything from culture to grading. They bring in beefs on the rail, and we split it at the ribeye and talk about grading and talk about costs and economics and get into the real nitty-gritty of barbecue as a backyard event and as a business. And that's where I met Bill. Bill was at Camp Brisket, and that's how we're here. But I think as Texans, barbecue tells us a lot about who we are. It is something that would not exist without the indigenous population, without enslaved Americans, without migrants and squatters and everything that we all are together. And it is this wonderful quilt of Texas. And I love the regionality. I love East Texas barbecue, and I love Central Texas barbecue. And I love what they're doing in Houston. Houston's one of the most vibrant barbecue communities right now, specifically because it is such a culturally interesting city. And it really, you'll see a lot about that next week when the top 50 list comes out. So we have barbecue restaurants represented here. I think that Jill and Kris are just about the best examples of Dallas barbecue and Texas barbecue. They are both from a family lineage of barbecue, which seems like a great place to start. But when you think about the community pressures and the family pressures that come with that, it's a lot more fraught than people give it credit for. And I don't think either of them intended initially to go down that path, correct? So it's always an interesting story. Alice, meat fight. This is one of the nuttiest, I mean, it's nutty. It's almost like she put together a group of 7-year-olds and said, we got to do some crazy stuff with meat. So what should we do? And like ranks them by the nuttiest things, and those are the things she incorporates. There are people in pig costumes and slingshots of meat going down fields. I mean, it's just wonderful. But the bottom line is she's raised an awful lot of money for MS research and for people who want to thrive with MS. And so she has taken this wonderful community thing and she has turned it into a way to make our world a better place. And community barbecue and backyard barbecue and church barbecue are just as big of a part of the story of Texas barbecue as restaurant barbecue. And I would like to point out that we do have folks here from White Rock Q. I am so impressed by you people. I love what you have done. They have taken our common love of barbecue and our love of community and have raised tons of money for the Dallas Area Rape Crisis Center. Is that correct? So thank you for that. That's amazing. So enough about me for the moment. But I was going to start with Kris initially, and I'm going to keep that pattern because that's how I work this out in my brain. Kris, Smokey Joe's. You did not start this, but you are doing something wonderful with it. Tell me a little bit about what Smokey Joe's was before you entered the picture as the owner. How did it get started?
So Smokey Joe's started off with Kenneth Manning, which is my dad, and Joe Melton. They started off in 1985, I believe. And so they started out together. Joe, it was all his recipes. He was the chef. He was the man with the plan, I guess you could say. And my dad was more so an investor into it. And as they went on, they used just different recipes. We had an old school brick and mortar pit. It used to be, I want to say 8 foot. I'd say 8 foot long and then 8 foot wide. And so how we would cook the ribs where we would put the ribs on the top rack and then for about an hour and 30 minutes and then drop them to the bottom rack. And we cooked everything on the brick pit. And so that's kind of how I got taught to cook, was everything was on the brick pit, and whether it was East Texas hot links, whether it was Smoky Denmarks, they were the real representation of old school barbecue. And so me coming in there, they were very successful at it too, you know, because as I was a kid growing up and just, you know, paying attention to Smokey Joe's, I would go to the packing house with my grandfather, and we would pick up anywhere from 20 to 40 cases of ribs for one shift. We'd do that 2 times out the day. Because I would go back with my grandpa every day. We'd bring the van right over there, and just, you know, ribs would be filled to the roof. And people look at me crazy when I say that, but that was Smokey Joe's in the 90s. And so the early 90s, 2000s, that was kind of Smokey Joe's prime. And so it gave me motivation in how I even began to even take over. I graduated from Sam Houston in 2013, and I could not find a job. That was a struggle. I was on my high horse, and I was coming out of college, and I want to go work in corporate, and I want to wear a suit and tie to work and go work downtown. And I got really, really humbled very, very quickly. And so I started working at the restaurant and kind of doing there part-time. And my dad, he's had a couple back surgeries, and Joe, they're both up in age, around 70, and they're just kind of at a point where they're like, hey, you know, what are we gonna do? We can't, you know, they put in a good run. They had a 30-year run, and it was kind of their time. They wanted to retire, and it was pretty good, you know. So it was understandable. But me growing up in the restaurant, it was almost it was my dad teaching me that I had to earn my money, and I had to learn the value of a dollar. And so I grew up in a restaurant more so as, you know, you're gonna earn this money. I'm not giving you an allowance. I'm not giving you anything. You're gonna earn this. And so as I got older, you know, he was like, if you ever do drugs, this is where you're gonna be. And so you're gonna be working it here. And I was like, I'm not working it here. So the first thing, you know, when I got out of college, I was just like, I'm not going there. I'm like, that's where I'm not going. And so, but I got humbled, and my dad, he asked me, because I was struggling to find a job. I was putting in applications everywhere, and I just couldn't find a job. And he asked me in the first time, I was like, no, you know, I don't mind helping you out right now until you find somebody, but I don't foresee myself, you know, going into the restaurant industry and cooking barbecue. And I remember, you know, growing up, we barely had AC in there, and it was hot, and it was a lot. It was a lot to work in there. So I told him no the first time, yes. So I was just managing, trying to find a job the first 6 months after I got out of college. And he asked me again. And then I said, no, you know, I'll think about it, but I don't really, you know, want to do that. And so a couple more months go by, and I still can't find a job. So finally I said, you know what? I'll consider it if it's only me. You know, it's only gonna be me. I'm gonna be the only owner. I can't deal with you and Joe, or y'all gotta retire. And that was the deal that I made. And the reason I made that deal was because Joe was kind of a guy, he could cook. This guy could. I've seen him smother cabbage. I've seen him do smothered ribs. He cooked the most amazing ribs. He cooked pies. He was a chef before chefs. But I also knew the changes and transitions that I wanted to make were not going to be done while Joe was there, because Joe was not going to allow that. And so one of the things when I came in there, okay, well, I want to offer specials. I want to work on certain meats. How can I get better in certain areas? And so I felt like I was going to struggle like that working with Joe. So they both retired. Joe's happy fishing now, and my dad's happy hunting. So they're good to go. But with that being said, just going into the barbecue, I never really learned how to cook barbecue from anybody until later on. And so for me personally, I think when I first realized my brisket was terrible was when I ate at Terry Black's in Austin before they moved to Dallas. And I was like, man, this brisket is like steak. I was like, I've never tried such amazing brisket. It melted. I remember the butter was just all rendered down. It was perfectly smoked brisket. And that's when I realized, you know, I tried everything on their menu, and I said, okay, I got them on the ribs, but my brisket is terrible. I said, man, what is this brisket? So I got really just enthused and trying to figure out how can I improve this brisket. And so I started looking on YouTube, just trying to learn and trying to read Aaron Franklin books and just all this kind of stuff. And I was like, man, how is he getting this? When I tried the brisket, it was just so juicy and moist. And I just remember, they gotta be injecting the brisket. They gotta be injecting the brisket. And then, so that's when I started to learn about I went to meat church actually in Laussade. And I started learning about grades of meat. And I started getting educated about grades and started understanding, it's not that you can't cook a bad brisket, you're just using the wrong grade. So I learned different grades. So that was one of the big implementations that I did at Smokey Joe's that really, really for us helped it and turned it around. We've always had good ribs, but our brisket was it was old school. They were, they would cook briskets. I don't know if you are familiar with the 225 cuts. I think they are. They're real fatty. I don't even think you can really find them anymore, but they're 225. They're real old school. Like some people keep the fat on there, things like that. So those we started finding a prime brisket, and now we're comfortable with a 2/3 higher choice that we're comfortable at right now. So we've looked into those, and those briskets have really, really just taken a great toll for us in turning the business around and offering different specials, revamping the sides, things like that. Me just going around and eating different barbecue actually have inspired me so much. And that's something that I like doing in my downtime is going to eat barbecue, because I feel like it's necessary. There's no such thing as right or wrong. It's all about preference. And I think sometimes people forget to remember it's the preference of how you like to cook, and I think that's a good thing that Kelly said was you can go to East Texas, people in East Texas, they're crazy about East Texas hot links, Pittsburgh's hot links, and you can go to Houston and people are crazy about boudin, and then you can go to Central Texas where if your brisket isn't correct, you're gonna be in trouble. So I think that's the most beautiful thing about barbecue, and in my opinion that I like the most is barbecue is what you make it. And so it's you putting your spin on it, and it's all about how you like it.
Can I ask you a question?
Uh-huh.
You went from the traditional brick pits out there that they had been using forever, and at some point you transitioned to some of the prettiest Moberg pits I've ever seen, and they're all pretty. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Sonny Moberg's work, but holy cow, I mean, they're just beautiful. And you've got 3 of those suckers. How long did you have to wait for those to come in?
I think about 2 years.
And that is a different art form, going from brick pit to an offset smoker of that size. It's not reinventing the wheel, but you have to learn how to make those guys sing. Who did you turn to when you talk about your educational journey? Who are some of the people you turned to when you changed so drastically from one mode of cooking to the next?
So as I was going back to my YouTube story, I was doing research, and they had a video of how Aaron Franklin built his pit. And so I showed my neighbor the video. He's an amazing welder, and so he welded me a 500-gallon pit. And that's kind of where I started working on it. And when we got the Mobergs in, we realized how many flaws we actually had. But for far as just learning and actually learning how to cook on offset smoker, it was Guest Family Barbecue in Waco. Reed and Cade, I kind of apprenticed them. Daniel Vaughn, he set up an apprenticeship for me to go down there and learn from them. And it was truly a blessing. I was very, very thankful for that, because Reed and Cade Mercer, they really took me in like family and taught me things that I never knew. They taught me how to make sausage. They taught me how to cook whole hog. They taught me just all these things for no amount of money. And I've heard of people just getting consulted for thousands of dollars just to learn how to cook brisket. And so I'm forever grateful for Reed and Cade Mercer at Guest Family Barbecues.
Well, and I think a lot of us who have been around the barbecue community in Texas talk about it as a family. And I've never really seen any other industry that was quite as willing to share information and mentor each other and help each other and go around the state and try each other's food. And whereas there was a lot of secrets at some point it became a family. And you will see all of these people traveling around the state, and their Instagrams are filled with other people's barbecue. And I really think that there's a sense of lifting each other up, that there's enough business for all of us, that if we promote each other, it's only going to get better. You know, the first thing I asked Kris this evening, "Do you have any good barbecue?" And he said, "I was just a Cadillac," right? And so it's going around and learning from each other and talking to each other, and I found that there's quite a lot of kinship. I call myself barbecue adjacent. I'm not really in the community other than as a photographer, but standing on the outside and watching how these pitmasters and restaurateurs interact to help each other has been one of my favorite things about the community. Speaking of Daniel, y'all know Daniel. Everyone who works in the industry certainly is at least aware of his impact on barbecue. And for any of you who, I don't know where you've been sleeping, if you like barbecue, he's the barbecue editor for Texas Monthly, and next week the top 50 list comes out for this round. But a few years ago, he writes this, and I quote, "He gave me a slice from the fatty end that ranked in the upper end among the briskets I've had anywhere in Dallas." And that was about your brisket and what you've done at Smokey Joe's. How does something like that land when you've been trying so hard to change, and you have a guy like Daniel give you that kind of validation?
It meant a lot. It meant a lot because my restaurant and the demographics, it doesn't really allow me to serve a grass-fed brisket. And
I don't like grass-fed, so I'm so happy.
Well, and so, you know, when I'm cooking brisket, I always know that I'm up against that. And I don't want to charge, you know, $35, $32 a pound for brisket, but that's where I would be at if I decided to serve grass-fed brisket. And so it meant a lot. It meant a lot for him to say that, because I know he's tried the best.
Well, I think one of the challenges these days, especially for people who are serving those very expensive proteins, is it almost seems like brisket is a loss leader. I don't even know how anybody makes money serving the one thing that everyone requires you to do perfectly.
Yeah.
The cost of inputs is so high right now. It's one of the things that has been hit so hard by inflation as well. The meat market is crazy. And so one of the things I love about your place is that you have this marriage of very high-end proteins, quality-wise, but you also do this fabulous job of having the specials and having working people food. Because we can't all spend 3 hours waiting in line every day for a sandwich. I mean, you've got to have places where you can get in and out of in 30 minutes, and those places need our money and our support as much as any other place, and they're desperate for it, right? But you've got both. And how important was it to you to keep that aspect of a local barbecue joint while you're also aspiring to do this grand statewide level of barbecue?
I have a cook that's been there. He watched me grow up as a kid, and he's still there now. And me and him we're pretty much business partners now, because he keeps my head on straight. And you know, even when I want to get off beat, he tells me, "Kris, this barbecue place is about the community, and you know, I know you want to do certain things and that you want to implement, but I don't want you to forget that this restaurant is about the community." And for certain items, you know, like East Texas hot links, me personally, I don't like them. I mean, they're all right, but it's not just my favorite item. But it's a popular item that we sell a lot. And so aside from that, there's another item like brakes. I don't like it, but it's a cheap item, and it's an item that sells quite frequently. And it's something like Kelly said, it's a difference in what you want to put on the menu and something that sells. And that's the difference between, you know, I've always told Daniel, like, I had a real big trouble with my beans, because I put on some beans, they were canned beans, and I was trying to remake the beans from fresh beans. And I had, you know, older customers. What in your right mind would you change those beans for? Well, the guy said, well, what was wrong with them? I said, well, we just want to be more authentic, sir. And he said, but why are you going to change something that's not broke?
Well, and you've got to please the people to come every day or 2 times a week, as opposed to somebody who's on the barbecue trail who might come to your place once. And that's a hard thing to balance.
Exactly.
I want to talk about the ladies for 1 second. You're one of those places where I'm going to go on Fridays and Saturdays, and I'm always going to try to go on Fridays and Saturdays because you have a special menu on Fridays and Saturdays. So tell me about the ladies. You got an aunt, you got some recipes from your grandma, your mama. Tell me a little bit about that influence on your menu, and then I swear I'll keep moving. But
so I have a very, very strong supporting woman cast. I have my aunt. She is one of the best cooks that I know, and she kind of came on board, I want to say a year ago or so, and it's been a huge blessing. And she has the best carrot cake in the world, and I promise you that it will change your life.
It will change your life.
It will change your life. I think you could ask Kelly that. But I have been really blessed to have just amazing family members around me, such as my mom, such as my godmother, which she helped me out with just her beans. So we always try to dedicate on our menu from each thing that I've learned from each person, such as we have the beans, which I got yelled at about. I tried to change the beans. Those are the Beverly beans, so we try to show her respect and honor her and her bean recipe. And the banana pudding, which is my mom's recipe, which is Lori's banana pudding. And we have a whole menu towards my aunt because she's gave me just so many amazing recipes, whether it's collard greens, cucumber salad, cabbage, chicken tetrazzini, just a little bit of everything.
But so you need to go to Smokey Joe's if you've not been out there yet. I recommend that on your first trip, you go on a Friday or Saturday. Go early so you don't miss out on these sides because they do go away.
Yeah.
I mean, they move. And just order everything. Just order a little bit of everything. When I went out there last, I had ribs, fabulous. And I had one of your signature sandwiches, which was a chopped beef with onion rings and pickles and sauce. And I feel like I'm missing something else. What's that called?
Pickled onions, onion rings, chopped brisket, and I think that's it.
It's unreal. It's so good. So anyway, I'm gonna move on to Jill real quick because I can do. Sorry, sorry, lady.
I get to follow that.
Yeah. Okay. Now we're gonna. This is. Wait. I should probably do another one of these things, or I'm gonna have to give away 80 things right at the end.
Okay. Wait. I have a question for Kris.
Go.
Okay. Did y'all have the big brick pit grandfathered in? How did that work with the city of Dallas?
So everything was
31.
So everything was grandfathered in. The only reason we took it out was because multiple fires. That's a good reason, yeah. So it was grandfathered in, and it was an amazing pit. And it took me, like Kelly said, it was a big change to switch pits because your concern is what you always hear that pit season. It's not gonna do what that brick pit will do, and so I'm constantly hearing that, and I'm constantly just waiting for customers to say, this meat isn't the same, or something like that. And that's what I learned is it's not so much about the pit being seasoned. It means that you know how to work your pit the best. You know every inch and detail to your pit. You know how to slow it down when it gets too hot. You know how to pick it up really quick when you need to get more temp. And so for me, that's my meaning of what a pit means, seasoned, because at the end of the day, you have to clean the pit, or you'll catch a fire like I did. So.
Okay, we have a few genealogy issues to work out with Jill. And the most important is that several years ago I took one of the Ancestry.com DNA tests, right? And it brings back the list of people that you might be related to. And one of the usernames for my fourth cousin was J. Grabowski B. And I'm like, how many Grabowskis can there possibly be? And I sent my friend Jill a text and said, please tell me that this is you. And she said, why do you know my username on Ancestry.com? And we're cousins. So that was a real treat for me. The problem is we're not cousins on the right line.
We're not on the barbecue line.
We're not on the barbecue line.
But that's okay.
The barbecue line for Jill is, I just feel dumb saying it, it's just so cool. Kreitz Market and Smitty's.
Oh, man.
Explain,
So,
tell us who you are.
who I am. So my grandfather bought Kreitz Market from the Kreitz family way back when in the 1940s. So when he passed away, he had sold the business to his sons, and he left the building to his daughter, the original building. Well, the daughter raised the rent. She opened Smitty's, and the boys moved down the street. So, that's a lot of family fun. But they did have the great brick pits. Like, I remember going to the original Kreitz Market, and you had the fireplace right there that I threatened to throw my sister into, and you had the knives chained to the tables, which they can't have any of that anymore. But yeah, so...
Lawyers ruin.
Right, of course, and health department maybe. So that's where I get my family history from. And you're very lucky because when my cousin Keith, who runs Kreitz now, I don't know that his father ever technically retired. He would show up every day and sit in a chair nearby. So, yeah, you did it right.
So did you spend a lot of time there when you were a kid? I mean, is this like
Yeah,
steeped
so
in your memory?
I grew up in Temple, Texas, and my father was definitely a mama's boy, so we would go back and visit his mother and Papa Schmidt and everybody almost every weekend, just about.
Okay, now fast forward, there was no pressure at that time for you to go into the business.
No, actually, I am a former television producer, and my husband was in the fashion industry, and the recession hit, and he was in a private label business, and Walmart said, you know what, we don't need anything this year. We're good, thanks. So that was slightly scary. And at the time, there was a place called Hill Country in New York City that opened up, opened by the Glossermans, which is a Lockhart-based family. They had the car dealership and grocery store in town, or no, the department store in town. So we were in New York City visiting, and there's pictures of my family on the wall in New York City, and I was like, okay, if this can work in New York City, certainly we could make this work in Dallas, Texas. And as you say, the lineage of barbecue is much more interesting. So Lockhart Smokehouse is much more interesting than Jill and Jeff's barbecue.
True. I just love that fact. It's so cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool. So when you decided to do this, you were, let's call it Dallas Renaissance Barbecue. We all know where our old school spots are in Dallas. At some point, the Lockhart thing happened and the Pecan Lodge thing happened.
So Pecan Lodge was probably open about 6 months before we opened. And yeah, it was kind of this...
They were still at the farmer's market,
They were still at the
right?
farmer's market, and it was we opened officially in 2011, right in the middle of that epidemic ice storm, which we thought we'd never forget until this past year. So we were just right at the beginning after Aaron Franklin of kind of that renaissance coming along. And, you know, there were just a few places that started opening after that.
Not much in Dallas, though. I mean, for a
No,
while
there wasn't much
there,
in Dallas.
It was you guys in Pecan Lodge doing that Central Texas style.
Right.
And it was super interesting. And you guys nailed it pretty quickly. Now, I'm assuming you had some...
there were a few bumps along the road. Leslie Brenner's 1-star review, which
That was fun.
Yeah.
What does she
You
know
turned
about
that into a
civilized
thing.
barbecue?
We did turn that into a thing.
Do you want to...
Oh, well, it was my husband's completely juvenile sense of humor, saying, today's special is smoked bologna. Hers is written, ours is off the pit. And so that got us a little bit of press, and we, yeah.
There was also a forks thing.
Yeah, was it the forks?
Oh,
or the
yeah,
sauce?
I forgot about the forks. Oh, yeah, we didn't have forks, yeah. Yeah, we were a little juvenile with some fork puns.
It was great.
Meat puns and fork puns run strong in the barbecue community. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah. Well, if you can't have fun, I mean, that's what we say frequently. Like, if you get too stressed out, it's barbecue, not brain surgery. Thank God. I mean, no one is going to die. We might screw something up.
So where did you turn? When you had this aha moment, like, this really might work?
We were lucky enough to have my cousin Keith, who runs Kreitz Market, and his team guide us in directions, because they smoke on the giant brick pit, and we were like, yeah, Dallas is not going to let us
So
do
y'all
that.
use Bewley's.
We use Bewley's, who he makes them right out of Fair Park, right over there, which is good because we can break them frequently, and so they come out and fix them.
You explain the Bewley. Is anyone familiar with this? There's offset, and then there's Bewley. You know what the Bewley is? Familiar? Give us the short version.
So the nice thing about the Bewley is you have to use much less firewood, and there's an actuator to it. So it takes a certain amount of the stupidity out, but you still need to know your pit, because there's hot spots, cold spots. It can, a Bewley, they're similar to oil. They got in a fight. I think there was a trademark fight at some point in time. So, yeah. But yeah, so there is an actuator, but the nice thing is it will kind of keep going and doing its thing most of the time.
That is, because then you get to sleep. Someone can sleep.
Not
that
good.
helps a little, right?
At the beginning, not so much. We've gotten better, I think, some days.
So are your recipes family-based, or did you
we had
different?
an amalgamation, because when we first started, we didn't have forks, we didn't have sauce like Kreitz Market, because we thought that would be neat. We found that if you tell people they can't have something, they really, really want it more. So then we developed our sauce recipe, we developed forks. We came up with forks, no one else had them. No, we put out forks, we did come up with our recipes. We had a partner that knew his way around the kitchen that was a chef, and helped us develop some cool stuff.
It's one of the most shameful things in my barbecue background, but I love sauce. I really do. I grew up in Wichita Falls, and I mean, Texas toast and sauce was like a side dish. And you had to have sauce because North Texas brisket is a little slower onto the quality train than some others. They are proud.
Well, but if you want to just make, because you can make a quick little sandwich. You can get like a quarter of a pound chopped brisket. We give you pickles and onions and bread. You can make your own sauce and have a lovely lunch. But you do need the sauce to go with the bread. And
I love your beans. Speaking of
Thank you.
beans, your jalapenos, they're very spicy, very sweet. It's a nice
mix.
Miss it. What are some other things that...
I like our blue cheese coleslaw. I find that fun. And we also do some cool specials like prime rib and lamb, and we'll do fish for the healthy folks. I like our turkey.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's talk about proteins a little bit. So I know we have some people who like to ply the trade out here too. We talked about brisket kind of being an impossible mandate at this point. What are some of the proteins you think y'all do well that you can actually make a turn on? Like, what do you wish people would order more of? Other than turkey. Turkey, right?
Well, no, and now turkey's getting difficult to get. So everybody order your Thanksgiving turkeys early.
Are you doing Thanksgiving pre-orders?
Yes, ma'am.
And are y'all going to do turkeys? What else are you going to have?
Turkeys, we're debating dressing, but turkeys and hams right now.
Okay, and Jill, what will y'all offer for?
Turkeys and hams and whole brisket and prime rib. Do your whole brisket, because people sometimes like that for Thanksgiving.
Always like
all right.
they'll buy them.
Yeah, they'll buy it. There you go.
Awesome. Well, what do you wish people would order more? What do you wish? Is there something that you're like, this is really great, we do a great job of this, and it doesn't get traction because everybody's addicted to the brisket?
No, not terribly. For the most part, it's a nice variety because there's something for everybody. Because, the nice thing about our place is with the paper, it kind of gives you that communal picnic vibe. I feel like, so if you try a little bit of everything, there's, you come with a group, it's easier. And then there's something for everybody. And you can sample a little bit of it, and you're all kind of digging in with your hands, and it feels nice and down home. And that's one of the things I love is people that'll come in and be like, I remember going to this place with my grandmother, going to Kreitz Market, and I had this sausage, and it brings back lovely memories.
Okay.
And that's one of the great things about barbecue in general. It's one of those foods that's just very visceral, and you can always remember wherever you were.
You guys started in Bishop Arts.
We did.
And then you opened up in Plano.
We did.
Which is also darling. But you recently moved to a third location out by Jerry World.
Yes.
How is that going?
The ballpark at Arlington. Right before COVID's a lovely time to open up.
That's not cool.
We've muddled through. There are much sadder stories out there than ours. So it's all learning.
Sure.
Everything we figure out every day. It's figuring out what you can do better.
Do you feel like how's it looking? Do you feel like it's on the upswing, some recovery there? Do you
Yes,
think-
I mean, definitely we were talking about catering is picked up. I feel like people, I mean, hey, we're all here tonight. Heck, we couldn't have done that a year ago, so yeehaw. Right. So no, I think we're starting to see brighter days. Knock wood.
Good. And I'm going to move on to Alice real quick, just so to make sure we get the chunk of everybody, and then we can ask each other questions. But okay, Meat Fight, I hope you all have an occasion to go at some point. It's one of those tickets in town that if you don't have fast fingers, you're not going to get the ticket you want. It is so much fun.
Can't get one.
Except this year, because no meat fight.
Right. Well, there's that.
But it'll be online. So
It's true. There'll be an online auction. Sorry.
Regular times.
Anyway, I'm just sad because, like, you know, we want to gather 1,000 people indoors. But
Sure. Who doesn't?
maybe in a minute.
Right.
I know, right?
But I think there's something really special about being a part of something that embraces the community aspects of barbecue. Like I said, the political history of barbecue in Texas alone, you could write a book on. Church barbecues, Father's Day barbecues, what have you, tailgating, right? But you're taking a love that we all have of this special thing, and you have created an engine to do something incredibly positive. You talk like the genesis of Meat Fight was a little more lowbrow than that. Like,
Well, it's all born out of selfishness.
Okay, tell us how this was
Yeah, well,
born.
like, so we went to my friend Greg Smith's house. I remember his name because it sort of started this craziness. Best brisket I had ever had in my life at that point. I was of your mind where it's like, sure, have barbecue without sauce, fine, you're adorable, I'll do it because that's what we're supposed to do here, but like I've been living in Dallas and you can't do that with what we currently had when I was growing up here in Dallas. It just, you needed the sauce. And so anyway, my friend Greg was like, you're an idiot, have my brisket. Which I'm sure you've all said to your friends at some point or another. So I did, and it was amazing. And my husband and I went home and we were like, that was really great. So how do we get Greg to do that again for us, except next time, like, bring it to our house. Like, I don't want to have to leave my house. And so we were drinking a little bit and talking, and it was like, what if a bunch of our friends who had just gotten all their new smokers brought all of their briskets to our house? Then we could have all the briskets and all of the food and just be lazy. And so we decided we would do that. We were like, let's have a party. We'll provide the keg, they'll provide all the barbecue, and you know, we'll just see what happens. And we knew that with our friends, like, we couldn't convince them to do it unless it was like a competition. So I was like, I know, I'll make a shitty trophy. We'll tell them it's a big deal even though it's not. We just need a good name, you know, because we were both in advertising and we're like, we're not gonna get them over here unless there's a good name. And so we threw a bunch of names around, and then at some point my husband was like, oh, what about Meat Fight? And we both were like, yeah, that's definitely it. And so that year we just invited a bunch of our friends over, and they, you know, we had 4 categories of competition. We had brisket, pulled pork, sausage, and ribs. And I made these really dumpy beer can trophies. So I just got a can of beer, and I got a piggy bank, and I super glued it to the top, and then I spray painted the whole thing gold, and I wrote in Sharpie, Meat Fight, brisket on the front. And the winner would get this amazing trophy, you know. And they got really amped about it. In fact, we named all the winners, and all the competition was over, and I saw my dad in the kitchen, and he's a big, tall guy, and with him was another one of my friends, Kris. And Kris is also a big, tall guy, and they were yelling, well, Kris was yelling at my dad, rather. He's like, you didn't even try the slaw that I put with my pulled pork. Like, you didn't even try the sandwich. And my dad was super calm, and he was just like, Kris, this is Meat Fight, not coleslaw fight. And you see Chris's face just like red, and he like left the room. And I turned to my husband and I was like, ooh, this is a great party. Like, we have to do this again. Like, they're actually mad. He's actually mad. He lost a made up thing. And so it was great. We had a really good time. That for me is a good time. Which I guess says something about me when my friends are fighting in the kitchen and I'm like, great. And so then later that year, my brother got diagnosed with MS. And the way he told us was that he just came home and he was like, hey, so I got this diagnosis, and I also want to do this 150-mile bike ride over 2 days. It's called Bike MS. Will you ride bikes with me? My husband and I were like, yeah, like I guess we got to get bikes now. And so then we signed up for the ride, of course, and there's a minimum of fundraising. You have to do like a $300 minimum to ride or something, right? Because they have to add that to also you have to train to ride 150 miles on a bicycle. But okay, so we're like, okay, great. There's 2 of us riding. The last thing I'm gonna do is email a bunch of my friends, hey, I'm doing this ride, will you please give me $5, you know? Which is hilarious because now that's my job, that's it. Every day, I'm like, Jill, will you give me $5? And so this time we decided to have the party again. We were like, what if we did meat fight only this time? It would raise money for the cause. And so we're like, that'd be great. So we invite all our friends to do it again, and we said, you know, we'll charge $20 at the door and have more friends come eat the barbecue. If you pay at the door, you get a t-shirt, looks stupid, has a dumb logo on it. This is the shirt they got. And it'll just be another good time, you know? And so at the time I was writing about food for the Dallas Observer, and I had a connection to Daniel Vaughn, who, you know, was like coming up, but this was like 2012, so it was like, he had a map of places, and Franklin Barbecue was on it, and that was a cool place I had heard of. And so I was like, maybe Daniel could come judge. And then we talked to Jill, and we talked to Jeff, and we talked to the fine folks at Pecan Lodge, and Jack Perkins was there, and I sort of bent all of the journalistic rules around conflict of interest. Like, if you're writing reviews about places, they shouldn't probably be drinking beer with you in your backyard, right? And so, so I stopped, was the good part of that story. So yeah. They were in my backyard. We had another meat fight. This time they raised $2,000, so that was great. We were excited. And then Jill and a bunch of people after the party came up to me and they were like, this is like cool and everything, but do you want to make a real difference for this cause? And why isn't this a public event, you know? And I was like, guys, I am drunk and I am not an event planner. Like, that's 2, Jill's doing keg stands, like, this is not for public consumption. And they said, you know, we'll help you out. Well, Daniel said, I'll see if I can get some other pitmasters to help judge, because that would be pretty cool. And, you know, I said, well, I guess I'll see if I can talk to some breweries and see if anybody would donate beer, because I was like, if we don't have beer, we don't have a party. And then Daniel did. He emailed a couple people, and everybody came and judged, and it was going to be a great thing. You know, I was like, would people even come to that? And everyone almost hit me at the party. Like, you idiot!
Tell them what's in this bag.
Smart man. That is a one of a 25 kind meat fight bag, and inside is a poster of Chuck Norris.
And it's going to number 13. Okay. So,
Chuck Norris.
Oh my gosh, thanks.
okay. Now, you have impressive barbecue people that come judge the event, but you have said that this is a Tweezer Chefs pretending to do barbecue situation. How did you put together the teams?
Well, so we wanted to, we're going to already be doing a charity event that was barbecue based, and at the time the Cattle Barons Ball was kind of the closest you would get to that, you know, and we were like, we're not gonna be exactly that. We knew we couldn't hang, and I also wanted my friends to be able to buy a ticket, you know, and so the idea was let's have a party, and we just thought it would be funny. We just thought it would be funny to see these fancy ass chefs get in there and try to make brisket, because they're all like, well, it's not that hard. It's like, really? Is it?
And they get very competitive about it.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't believe that beer can trophy. Apparently, it still matters. I don't know. They're crazy. I'm like, guys, you're hilarious.
But it seems like you have this incredible skill to pull like the weird stuff out of your hat. And I think one of the coolest things y'all, a lark, I guess. I don't know. Explain how you got Nick Offerman to come judge.
Oh yeah. So I was drunk again, and I was on Twitter. I was on Twitter, and somebody was like, you know, Meat fight was great. We raised $20,000 at that first public meat fight. And so again, we were like, sweet, we did it. You know, and then somebody was like, so next year, right? And we went, okay, sure. And so then it was, well, who are you going to have judge next year? Because the year previous, you know, we'd had just the best pitmasters in Texas at the time came and judged, and it was great. So somebody was joking with me and said, you know, it'd be awesome if you had Ron Swanson judge. And I was like, oh my gosh, that would be amazing. Yeah, so this is going to take a hand. I had to be like, boop, boop, boop. You need to see that on Twitter. And I was like, hey, Nick Offerman, come judge me fight. And
out of nowhere. You didn't, I mean, absolutely out of nowhere. Right?
I don't
not
know.
like your cousin.
No connection. It was literally the beep bop boop. That's what I did. And an hour later, I had an email from his publicist that was like, "Hey, Nick got your tweet, and he's really interested in meat fight, but he can't go to the website because the website meatfight.com seems like it might be unsavory material." And I was like, it's not, I promise. You know, so I emailed back and I was like, oh my God, no, it's not, and you can look at it. And so then they called and she was like, yeah, he's really interested, but you know, he sort of wants to know, like, what is it? And why, you know? And so I explained to her, you know, what it was, and she was like, well, you know, he says he can probably do it, and we just need to know, you know, if there's, I think he needed a car rental or something. No, hotel, that's what it was. It was like hotel needed to happen, and then could he bring his brother? And I was like, well, his brother, absolutely, sure. And then she was like, if you need to ask your board, you know, we totally get it. And I was like, yes, please hold. Hey, Mike, can Nick Offerman come to meat fight? And he was like, yeah, the board says it's fine. So yeah, it was like we just sort of like pretended like I don't know, or just acted like it was a thing before it was a thing. Just
and
like,
he really fit in.
Oh, he was great. He was the best thing ever. Like, I don't want to ever meet anybody else who's fancy, because he's just great. But he wins, he's great. He didn't charge us at all. No hotel, no nothing. He was like, that was silly, I'm not charging you for that. And I was like, my friend can pick you up in his truck at the airport. And he was like, shockingly, he was like, I'm good. But then like he and his brother show up in like a Toyota Tercel to the front of Old Four Corners, you know? And I was like, I think that's Nick Offerman in a Toyota? Did you rent that, man? And he was like, yep. And
the beard judging was his idea, or an idea that came with?
We came up with the beard competition.
Did that get a trophy? Was there a
Indeed.
trophy?
Oh yeah, I found the money in the budget for another beer can and some more spray paint. But yeah, his idea was that when he went through the line of really maybe too eager guys who lined up for the beard competition, he went to the judges' table and picked up some tongs. And was like combing through beards. It was great. He was great and super nice, and his brother's amazing. And yeah, they were just super kind, you know.
You have imported a lot of Texas barbecue royalty into this game to judge and to just be glorious.
Hey, will you judge me fight next time?
You judge
by the way, just while I'm here.
I think
okay, cool.
A new recruit. That's awesome.
Always working.
I think Miss Tootsie has shown up at your party before, and
yeah.
she's like my little fairy godmother.
She's
and I love her
badass.
so freaking much.
Yeah. She went to Oklahoma after meat fight last year. She was like, I'm gonna go gamble. Yeah, that was a condition of not what we had to do with her, but what Carrie, he was like, he's like, I gotta go, Miss Tootsie, and I gotta go to Oklahoma. I was like, I guess you're done here.
Lockhart t-shirt number 16.
Yes.
All right. Okay, let's talk about who else? Royalty-wise. I think I saw Wayne there.
Uh-huh.
And you had Carrie and Miss Tootsie, and who else has come?
Aaron, little known, Aaron. Aaron did it, didn't he? Yeah, one of our first amazing auction items in like 2014, I guess, or 2013 was a smoker that he built. And
Aaron has a whole line of smokers now.
Yeah, now he's selling
that yet. They're
Yeah,
pretty badass.
yeah. So 2013, he made one that he gave us that was like a prototype for that, and we auctioned that sucker off.
So that's the big party. I mean, Meat Fight.
Yeah,
is
that's
party.
the big
Tell me
November
about
event.
Some of the other.
Yeah, so
offshoot events.
so we do the meat fight every year. Usually, it's a big old thing. There'll be like 16 Dallas chefs will compete in those 4 categories I mentioned earlier: brisket, pulled pork, sausage, a wild card, which we change every year. That can be anything from like when Offerman was there, it was salmon, and they have to do this item in the style of Texas barbecue. And he wrote on his ballot, "Salmon is bullshit." It's great. And so yeah, we have that. That's the big main event. And last time we got to have that one, we raised $225,000 at that one. And so yeah, I mentioned that one because it's like the big deal, you know. But then we also were like, well, you know, it's summertime, like we want to do something stupid. So and keep, you know, people are like, oh, you got to keep your name out there in branding, and I was like, okay. So my brother and I came up with an idea to do a 1K in 2015, I think. And we were like, yeah, okay, because a lot of what we do also centers around, you know, we're trying to help people living with MS. What we know from the research is that exercise helps everything, right? So we have a program where we give bikes to people living with MS so they can do that bike ride I was talking about earlier. Because those bikes are expensive, and you can't do that when you're doing medical bills and everything else, right? So anyhow, want to raise a little more money for that. And we're going to do a 1K because it's exercise, you know, but for jokes. And so we get 40 food and beverage stations, and we put them in a field out at Tubbs is where we did it a while back. And if you can eat or drink at 12 or more stations, you get a finisher medal. And what I really wanted with it was like, okay, I want it to look like, because it was like what I thought was the beginning of people doing it for the gram, you know? So like, I was like, I want it to look like I did some shit. Like I want it to look like I did an event and I ran, you know? So we do, they get a bib number, like you get a number with safety pins, you know, at the start. There's a big, we made this big giant mouth start line that we had procured by a company that was like, you want what? And I was like, I want a mouth. And so they made that. So you run through that, and then at the start of every 1K, you know, of course, we sing the national anthem like you would at a big event. And then we sling shoot a brisket into the air, like you do. No, we figured out it has to be like 8 pounds only, because any more is like a real logistical nightmare for my lawyer.
What's the hang time of an 8-pound?
It's not that long, you know, and it makes the guys who have to pull the slingshot back really tired because they got to do a lot of work to pull it back. So then came the year where we made the trebuchet, which is like medieval slingshot, right? So we have one of those now.
How far does it go?
Have you guys been to that other brewery I was talking about? I don't know if I can say its name in here, Tubbs. They've got a big old field across from them, whatever that length of that is. Some K.
And what's the point of the flying?
Oh, and so then, of course, like my Texas rodeo upbringings, you put a ribbon on that brisket that you're about to sling shoot, and it's tickets to the next meat fight. Nice. And so it's like a calf scramble, only brisket. And man, you should see these old dudes just run. I have a slow-mo video of a guy just eating it. It's great. They ready to go. Like we play O Fortuna usually, like right before we sling shoot it. That's not a joke. And then what else do we do? Oh, the last time we had a guy play the national anthem on a saxophone, you know, because fancy. And then while he was doing that, we had beef jerky skydivers came from the sky wielding beef jerky. So we had beef jerky from the sky.
I wasn't kidding. It's like 7-year-olds are like, I just love it. I love
just like if you're gonna do a charity thing, just make sure it's stuff that you like, because it might blow up and then you gotta do it. And so this is just me. Sorry, like that's what it looks like.
Awesome. And so overall, how much money have you raised for MS and MS causes? and the likes?
Yeah, so over $2 million for the MS Society. Thanks. That's you guys. Like, you know, anybody who comes to a meat fight, 100% of the ticket price always goes to the cause. So that's, you know, we try to put as much as we can towards the cause because I'm, again, selfish and I want to fix my brother, you know? That's what it comes down to. So $2 million for the National MS Society. We've put 300 people on bikes nationwide, a few more than that actually. That's a road bike, trike, hand cycle, whatever they need. We got people doing Ironman. We've got 14 people that are going to do an Ironman, a half Ironman in April. For Project 13, and what else? We've got our own research endowment with UT Southwestern.
That's awesome.
That we started. Pretty cool. Yeah.
Lockhart barbecue sauce.
Oh, get it and use it.
9. Anybody?
That's Robert's.
Number 9?
It's sauce, it's fine.
It's whatever.
It's
Right?
Delicious.
It's Robert. Robert, you're number 9, Robert.
Must be president.
Are you number 9? You are number 9. You have the sauce.
It's rigged. It's rigged.
Congratulations, Robert.
That
I
is
don't think
weird.
they know.
That is
We're just
weird.
going to trust you.
Just got it.
I mean, that's Jimmy, so.
Okay, I had a thought before I came here tonight, which was, have you guys heard of the Troubadour Festival that's going on November 6th in Salina? It is. You need to look it up. It is some really amazing pitmasters from all over the state are coming to do this festival, and it's also a full day of music. Pat Green, Stony LaRue. It's a huge barbecue and music festival. And I was all Miss Fast Fingers on the day that the tickets went out, and I got these fancy VIP tickets, and you get to go in an hour early, and it has its own entrance, and you get to sample all the barbecue first, and there's a special mosh pit VIP thing for all the music, and it's an all-day thing. I can't go because I have to do a gallery exhibit because photography is my side gig. So I have 2 VIP tickets to the Troubadour Festival, and if anybody is willing to write a $500 check to Meat Fight, I will give you my tickets.
Gosh.
And that's about the face value. That's like
crazy.
$25 over the face value. But if anyone wants to talk about that afterwards,
Oh, wait, here, let me talk about Troubadour.
do it.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I know we're going to be there. It's an offshoot of Red Dirt Festival out in Tyler. So the guy that puts it on does an amazing job. It is one of the most fun barbecue festivals that we do all year, and I'm so excited to get to go back. So this is well worth your money and your time and your beer drinking points for the day.
And if you want to fight over it with one of your friends, we can just go up in $100 increments until somebody gives up.
I will note that $1,000 buys a bike for someone living with MS.
So
It's pretty good.
you can get the tax write-off. I'll give you the VIP tickets, and we'll move on down.
You're
the road.
awesome. That's what? Thank you.
I mean, I want to go so bad that I sort of need to have a spiritual connection to it. I'm just so bummed, but I got to work. It sucks.
I'll do 500 cash.
I've got, okay, it works for me.
Look at you. Hi, friend. I'm Alice Laussade. It's good to meet you. Let's be friends. Let's be friends.
So if anyone wants to try to beat that, that's between y'all, and that would be $600. So let me know, and until then, it's Mr. 500. And what's your name?
Mike.
Thank you, Mike. That's lovely.
Thank you so much.
This will just be an ongoing thing. 21. My kid says that for some reason. I don't want to know why. 21.
Eric.
Lockhart hat. Jill brought all cool stuff.
It was like trick-or-treating through my study.
I mean, I brought a Chuck Norris poster. Come on.
I'll take it home then. No,
Oh, do you want me to keep doing this? I mean, I like the giveaways,
just
right?
throw it out. It's like the
Well, if you're, I will do that. It's not as fun. I don't have a cannon.
Cannon.
And I can't try.
Why don't I have a cannon?
You need a cannon. Or
We do confetti cannons a lot. Some lady did it. One of my volunteers confetti cannoned someone in the face at a meat fight. I was like, dude, no.
The insurance is
Did you have
Mike was
cannon
My husband is our
Do you
lawyer.
have to get
It's a
special
problem.
event
What is
Oh,
confetti
do
cannon
I?
insurance,
Oh,
bro?
do I? Yes.
Texas
Meat
Q
Fight
is
have
a great book
insurance?
that just came out.
Yeah. Event insurance, we need more of it. Yes. Yeah. Question, sorry.
Fine. Cheryl Walters Jameson, she has been writing about Texas foods and Southwest foods for ages. She is a foodways person that I appreciate and love. And she wrote about how sweet I am in the foreword. Because she's a supporter of Foodways Texas. So if you are number 17, you can have this awesome Texas cookbook. Texas food. Do you have sponsorships and such for the big event? How does this work?
Yes, always. Yes, email me. Because that's the other part, is like it's still a family thing. So if you're talking to, you know, our social media representative online and you're saying something to them, that's me. If you're emailing about a problem, that's me. Yeah, exactly. Guys, this is how we make it work.
Yeah, that's awesome. I don't want to keep y'all going too long, but I would like to know, okay, I want you to spill a little tea on the Dallas food community and name some names about who in this food community, either barbecue
Sucks.
or restaurant. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
Who would you call out as people that have stepped up, stepped out, shown up, and supported Meat Fight to the nth degree just because they're good people?
Jill Bergus. All
Thank
day.
you, my cousin Jill.
Like, there's like that's no joke. Like, there's that.
Apparently.
But yeah, I think, you know, you were talking earlier about the barbecue community and how like everybody's like helpful to everyone and everything. And I don't know if that's the same all across Texas, but I do know that's a fact here in DFW. Meat Fight would not be able to do what we do. That, you know, when I say we've raised $2 million, we make $225,000 for the cause every Meat Fight. Like, we can't do that unless we have all these restaurants behind us helping us out. Every single thing we have at a Meat Fight is donated, from time to Rudolph's donating the meats to Jill donating auction items. Like, it's time and it's effort and all of it, and everybody here is just so giving. And you know, it doesn't hurt that we try to provide a pretty good time, but they don't have to do it, you know? Yeah. And we're just so grateful to everybody. That's another reason we can't have an in-person Meat Fight this year. We're built on the backs of the restaurant industry, right? I can't go to them right now and say, you know what I need is free shit, you know? Times 1,000 people. Like, well, now, I'm totally asking Jill for an auction item. Like, one item is a little bit different. But yeah, and you know I went to Pete Delkus and asked for some stuff, because he's a judge for Meat Fight too. So, because I like the weather, it makes no sense. Don't look for a through line with Meat Fight that makes sense. You won't find it. But yeah, we're just, everybody has been incredibly supportive, and we're super grateful.
It's awesome. What you do is awesome.
It's
30
fun.
for a hat.
Hey!
Okay, Bill, I don't know what kind of timing you had in mind, but I thought maybe it might be a good idea to ask a few questions. Does anyone have any barbecue related questions? Or yes, Mike, let's have it.
He's gonna earn his money.
Yes.
You can ask him anything.
So, Smokey Joe, you talked about the movement over to prime briskets earlier. My first question, I'll leave the second one for later after the rest of the barbecue keep going. So with Snow's claiming the use of choice brisket, do you think it's possible to turn out good, consistent briskets at that choice level? Or is there some intermediate grade of choice that's going on there that we don't know? We don't get the story.
I do. We use a choice brisket at my restaurant. And I had a friend, Kay Mercer, that just left today, and he tried it, and he said, okay, Kris, I can kind of understand why you use this brisket now. But I think you can. I think the only difference is, from my understanding, is you have to be more careful in when cooking it, because you look at a prime brisket, the marbling, you have more of it. So you have more that you can spare. Versus with a choice brisket, you have to be on the money. So I definitely do think it can be done, and I think I'm an example of a person that, you know, takes pride in making sure that it can be done, because I don't believe in, you know, buying $100, $130 brisket. And so I think it can be done. I think you have to manage it more. And from me going to apprentice at Guess, I did learn they use the grass-fed and a good grade of brisket, but they also cooked at a high temp. But I also learned that they can cook at a high temp because there's so much marble in it that whatever they lose, they're still gonna have enough of it. And so I do believe it can be done.
Give us another. Sure, got one.
Think about, when you have your original brick and mortar, but then you're like, okay, now I'm ready to expand. How do you manage recipes and trusting workers with your recipes, and then opening up a second location, and then you have that second location, cook the food there, or you cook it all in one place and kind of transport it over? So how do you think about that?
Very carefully. Actually, no, we cook everything on site at each location. And it's, fortunately, we've been doing this for 10 years. We have a good team. We lost a few people, but we're building it back. And it's kind of going around tasting it as much as we can and triage. So, and non-competes.
You have a trailer in addition to your store. So where does the trailer visit? And same question, how do you maintain the quality of the cook? I assume they're taking it with them and
Yes.
it's not cooking at the trailer.
I haven't been as blessed as Jill, and
Not yet, you're on your way.
I only trust one cook. And so my goal is, how can I distribute it properly with only having one person touching it? Because for me, cooking is something you have to really take passion in. It's something that you have to really care about and take pride in what you're doing. And so for us, we'll cook it all at the restaurant, and then, like, let's say this weekend, we'll put it on our food truck, put it in auto shims, and distribute it from there.
And where does the trailer go to?
So we do different events. Like this weekend, we're doing Pumpkin Fest in Mesquite. And so we just do different events like that.
Anybody else have a question?
Early October of 2022. Lake Highlands area might be doable.
Yes, sir. We actually do events in Rowlett right now. We actually doing a lot of events in Rowlett right now. So, yes, sir.
I'm your man.
I have a question for Jill. So, you and your husband both got your MBAs at Harvard, right?
We joke that we got barbecue MBAs.
Okay. So, one of my best friends did to Harvard when but what did your Harvard network say when you're like, we're leaving our high-powered Harvard MBA jobs to start with Harvard?
Funny enough, I mean, once, you know, we're blessed enough to have the family background. I mean, that's just luck. I mean, you know, that's 50% of it coming out of the gate is a name to build upon. And most of them were pretty supportive. I mean, my husband and I both went to Austin College up in Sherman. Hello, Tate. Yes, exactly. So we leaned on that network heavily when we were getting started. And funny enough, through the whole barbecue land, we found out that Barrett Black, the fourth, who's running Blacks down in Austin, was also an AC guy. So, you know, it's an adventure. It's one of those that I didn't want to sink my entire life savings into it. I needed an out clause, but it's worked out okay.
Number 3 and number 14. 3 leave. Who's got another question? 10. Who's
Thank you.
10?
Not 10, but
Yeah, go ahead. Who's 10?
I don't know.
All right.
Just
It's yours.
Right here. Sweet. I don't have a number, so I'll take it.
So I barbecue a lot at home and around town a little bit, and not nearly as much as y'all do. What do you do with all the ash? There's a ton of ash in the firebox, and I can only throw so much away before the city of Dallas says, you can't throw this much ash away. What do you do with the ash?
That's why we have restaurants. They have a commercial.
Do you have a special pickup? Do you throw it in a garden? Do you wait for a windy day and throw? What do you do?
I have a funny story about that.
They don't want to say. No, keep pushing, Dave. They don't want to tell you.
I don't really have a proper way of doing it.
There we go. Keep going. I like this.
One day we put these barrels on a trailer, and we thought we were at this abandoned property, and so all they realized this church was still active, and yeah, they were looking at us really crazy. So we stopped doing that. And so what we'll do is we get our trash dumped 3 times a week, and we'll do it on Mondays. We'll put them in the trash and run a water hose on them just to make sure. Because we have had the trash catch on fire one time. Yeah, so that's my solution. I don't know about you.
Well, fortunately with the muley, it takes a lot less wood, so we can spread that out a little bit more. And literally, yeah. We can empty it. There's a trash can that we take out maybe once every so while. You got a good one?
Another good use for that is oil spills.
Oh.
We use it for oil spills. Once it's cold and it's not hot or anything, it's good for spilling grease, spilling oil to get it up. It's good. It's like for oil absorbent.
Chris, I've got a question for you. And I don't. If I hit on like trade secret business, just tell me to buzz off. But what is your wood budget like? I mean, how much wood do you go through in a week? Can you even add?
I try not to count it.
I saw the truck come up 2 weeks ago, and there's a lot of wood on that truck.
We use a lot of wood. And I have an amazing wood man, and I'm not gonna complain. I don't really count it though, to be honest with you. It's usually, I would say, 4 quarts a week.
Okay. Oak. What are you cooking with?
Oak and hickory.
Oak and hickory.
Yeah.
Jill.
Aged post oak.
Aged post oak, baby.
Old school right there.
Yeah. So fortunately, we're not at that much. I mean, we get a cord probably every other week.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's efficient. My goodness. 15 for a t-shirt.
That's what he does, is work hard.
Anybody? Woo! Any other questions?
Can you give us like just one, not trade secret, but secret to the brisket?
Bring it to room temperature before you put it on.
Any kind of really? Yeah.
You can never go wrong with going slow. Take your time, be patient with it. Patience is a virtue when it comes to cooking brisket. So my biggest thing I tell people, you won't mess it up if you just take your time.
Do you both wrap at some point in the cook?
Yes.
About when? Like, is it at a temperature? Is it at what? How do you judge that?
For me personally, when the bark is perfectly formed, it can't take any more. And that's kind of what I look at is my bark at perfection? Is the back of it starting to kind of turn where it's going to be too hard to be edible? Things of that nature.
We don't wrap, we just shuffle them around between the hotter spots and the cooler spots.
That's interesting. 27 for a t-shirt.
Hey.
Okay, are you willing to disclose, do you take off by feel? Are you looking for a temperature on the brisket?
You go for the jiggle.
You're going for the jiggle. Are you going for the jiggle or are you going for a temp?
So what I always teach is I cook by feel, and that goes to every meat because I've learned the temperature might not be to my expectation. And so the biggest thing, like, when I'm teaching, I will tell people your moist end, it's always going to be the first thing done, but you're looking for the lean to be moist as well. It needs to be evenly cooked throughout. And so I cook by feel.
Okay. On an average pack of brisket that you get, you open it up. How much of that product are you trimming off before it even hits the smoker?
3 to 4 pounds.
3 to 4 pounds, which costs the same as the meat. 3 to 4 pounds of loss, and you're selling a pound of brisket for $20, $22. We're up to 28. I don't. When I buy barbecue, it's sterile. I just don't even tell me.
It is a handcrafted, labor-intensive process.
Big time.
The days of cheap barbecue, sadly, are over for great quality.
Well, and if you have spent any time smoking briskets, you know why it costs as much as it does. I mean,
well,
at
and
the
then
time,
there's the shrink.
And the shrink.
Yeah.
We can talk about.
So you're trimming that, and then you're losing probably what 30 to 40%, ballparkish.
So what weight briskets are you starting with?
We start typically between these days. Let's see. There's some skinny cows out there. Around 12 pounds or so.
And you're taking off.
We don't trim so much. We put the fat cap on top, and because we go a little lower and slower.
Okay.
So that kind of renders down and creates the moisture throughout. So then it's just the shrink.
You're losing about 30%?
Yeah.
That explains a lot about how hard the economics are. It does make rainbows. Yes, Bill?
I have a question for Alice. All right, so you've got all these people competing. They've been cooking all night. They've been drinking a lot of beverage. How do you keep it friendly?
You don't invite Jeff Perkins.
I mean, it's a fight.
Well, like they're gonna fight. The chefs are gonna fight. Oh, yeah. You know they don't fight. We did have one vomit. That was fun. I didn't know a chef was the one who had done it. So then it's like 1,000 people inside, and you just hear like during the auction, we're doing a cash call for bikes, and we usually have somebody get up and talk about their meat fight story, how they met us, and how they rode their 150 miles, and it was very epic for them. And then you just hear like, bleh, ah! You're just like, what the hell happened? And we needed the ashes. Yes. And so then I had back to what she was saying about costumes, So we had this last year. It was my dream to have go-go dancers at a meat fight, but I refused to objectify women, and so I was like, I want big bearded dudes dancing. And so we had this one guy in a hot dog costume up there, and he ended up being the one who had the mop to clean up the vom. So you just have a friend of mine got a picture of a nurse who was actually cleaning the mess, and then just saddest hot dog man, just mopping. So I put that on my Facebook, and I was like, whoever did this, because I know it's one of my friends, you tell me, just send me a direct message, and we don't have to ever speak of it again. But shame on you. And I got a message, and they were like, who do I owe a bottle of whiskey to? So yeah, the hot dog man was made happy.
Okay, next giveaway. This book is one of the best foodways books of the year, which is also about barbecue. It's called Black Smoke. Adrian Miller is out of Denver, and he went all around the country going to black-owned barbecue joints and talking about our recent fixation with Central Texas barbecue. I mean, as part of the thesis is all these pitmasters look really pale, given that the history of barbecue in the United States is extremely rich in Black history and African American history. This celebrates some of the great Black pitmasters and some great recipes. Number 26, and I think everyone should buy this. He's a that makes me very happy. Very happy. Okay, questions.
How much sleep do you get at night?
As an employer or a mom?
Depends. It depends. I figured out a good recipe that works where I can get sleep, and I think that is the name of the game is auto shell. So holds the brisket quite well.
Yeah.
So aside from that, I get pretty good
What
sleep.
is that? What does that mean? I don't know what that means.
It's a warmer. It's a holding cabinet, a heat holding cabinet, and so it gives my time for the briskets to rest, and I don't have to do an 18-hour cook overnight. So.
What is your magic number on resting? If you've ever sliced a brisket hot off the smoker and been very, very sad, one of the keys is resting. What's the magic? Do you have a minimum and a maximum?
I like to rest them for 8 to 10 hours.
Wow.
So I feel like what Kelly's saying, resting is important, and it's when the brisket just soaks, and it's just when you see a slice of brisket just flop over, that's greatness to me. So.
What do you rest at? 140?
148. Yeah, 148.
Very precise.
And that's something they talk about at barbecue camp all the time, is the resting issue, and often about how people will bring their awesome brand new Yetis and stick the hot meat right in there and shut it up, and that meat stays up there at 198 to 205 indefinitely and just keeps cooking.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily, there's an art form to the resting as well. Jill? No. Nothing. Okay. I have one more thing to give away, and I'm going to preface it by saying that Wyatt McSpadden is one of my favorite people on the planet. He's a photographer, generally, and he does a lot of work for Foodways Texas, and most of the iconic photos, many of the iconic barbecue photos you've ever seen in Texas Monthly have been shot by Wyatt McSpadden. He's also shot just some of my favorite, as a photographer, I would kill to be like him. He did the photo of Beyonce in the Willie Nelson braids. He's got one of the more iconic photos of Trigger, the guitar. I have a Willie Nelson fetish too. But Wyatt has, you will recognize a lot of these photographs. It's a beautiful book. He has one other, and if you follow any photographers in the world, follow Wyatt. Good guy, and has done a lot for the barbecue community. I think that one of the neat things about barbecue photography, which is a thing, there are about 10 of us out there who have the hubris to call ourselves barbecue photographers, but Wyatt is a star. His pitmaster portraits. He is a guy who, in his work for Texas Monthly, was one of the first people to go back behind the building and see what was going on and take beautiful portraits of the people who are doing work in hell-hot conditions, literal hell-hot conditions, and value their labor and capture them in a state where most people would shy away from having their photograph taken, but he sees the beauty in work, the value in a hard job, and I think that some of the photography by Wyatt and his, the barbecue issue and some of the barbecue photography are what have brought around some of the renaissance in Texas barbecue, and why people like to meet their pitmasters and why people like to go in and ask questions about the pits, and it's brought the guys from the back up front and made them important and made labor important and beautiful, and I respect that. So that's my Wyatt McSpadden thing. He also has one of the coolest Texas barbecue t-shirts on the planet, and it looks like this. It's barbecue with little Texas in the middle. Anyway, great photographer, great guy. Number 5.
Hey now.
Okay, I am all out of stuff, so we just have questions now. Anybody? Mike.
Whole hog.
Nice.
I've spent a few trips down in Argentina and done a bunch of the open grilling down there. And I've been interested now in starting some whole hog burrito out at my ranch farm. And curious what you think about either the spit or the brick mortar type of arrangement for whole hog.
So I've only cooked on a pit for whole hog. I haven't actually did a brick one, but I am intrigued by them, and I think either which way you go, I think it is an amazing piece of meat to cook. Whole hog, I first learned how to cook it 3 months ago or so, and it was rich. It was amazing, and I think both ways are very similar for what I'm learning from it. And they're both taken really slow, and I think you can still get the same kind of cook on a brick with the, I want to say, the cinder blocks and grates. And so from what I did on it, we cooked on a BBQ grill. I think they're based out of North Carolina, and it was amazing.
Jill, do y'all do the whole hog ever?
We have done them before. It's been a while, but I will tell you, we put them basically in a cooler to marinate. With spices and oranges and all kinds of good stuff, and then pop them in the pit just low and slow. So,
You guys ever tried any burrito?
we have done cabrito before. I can't tell you much about it, but yes, we have done it before.
I have to say, at the Meat Science Center, when we do the barbecue camps, Dr. Jeff Sable, he's the god of barbecue that you don't know yet. Bill knows him. He's one of the most amazing human beings you will ever get to meet if you have the opportunity to. But when he does barbecue summer camp, he always hosts a whole hog cook, and it's just part of our education. They bring the hog into the classroom and do some injecting and talk about the anatomy, and then take it out to his place. And he has set up one of the cinder block pits and has a grate with legs, and he gets 6 Aggies to get it in there, and he had a stainless lid fabricated to the exact size of the pit with a great thermometer right through the top.
Nice.
Yeah, and good little air circulation on the sides, and it is awesome. And you get this just gorgeous mahogany skin, and it's always incredible. So I would just say that while there are some amazing pig cookers out there, and I would say Cadillac,
Yeah, he does them frequently.
he's got a very special cooker, and he does amazing whole hog, and he's one of the people that will let you come around back and see what he's up to. So if you want to learn how to cook whole hog in Dallas-Fort Worth, I would talk to Todd David and go see what he's doing with his whole hog, but also consider looking up Jeff Sable,
I've been there, Bone.
because I think he's put some diagrams out there, and cinder blocks are cheap, and it's fun.
There was an auction item, we had a meat fight, and you bought it, and Tim Byers came to your house and built a cinder block situation. I believe he did barbacoa though, didn't he? Or he did tacos of some kind. Yeah. Yeah. It didn't suck.
Well, and Tim, he did at Smoke, which is
That book has, that's what I brought it up.
That cookbook
It
has
has exactly that.
diagrams.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and I would, as we go through books, if you haven't read Aaron's book,
His has
And-
like this, how to build the smoker that he built, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
like
amazing.
he talks about how he didn't like the smokers that were on the market. They just weren't moving the air through the way he liked it. So casually, he's like, so I just built my own.
Yeah.
It's just like, you jerk.
but he has no secrets. I mean, he will sit there and
He's awesome.
He explains fully that as he was drinking with his friends in the backyard and accidentally let that brisket go past what everybody else was cooking it at, it was like, oh crap, I've ruined the dinner, and accidentally produced that aha brisket that changed the way he did things. But he lays it all out there. He's got no secrets. His he always says that the secret is I'm going to keep working hard, and I do this longer and harder than everybody. The secret is in my effort, not in the how exactly. But that book, I love Daniel Bond's Profits of Smoked Meats. In the back of that book, he talks to a bunch of pitmasters about their wood, the signature meats that they do, how long they cook it, what they cook it to. It's a great little primer in the back of that book that I think is priceless. Are there any other books out there that y'all ran across that you're like, that's pretty awesome? Those are the ones that I always end up talking to. I like books too.
Many leather-bound books.
Okay, any other questions? Anybody?
Yeah, so a big round of applause. Thank you all so much. And Bill, thank you for putting this together.
Yay. Good job, boys.
Thanks to all the guests as well. If you're interested in more about Exchange Club, Michael Bailey is in the back. Go see Michael. He'll tell you all about us. So thank y'all very much. I really do appreciate the time and y'all being here tonight. Fantastic event, and do appreciate it very much. So with that, remember, we've got the PAX for LH. If you would please consider donating for that. And then next Friday, we're back at the KC for Jimmy and the Youth of the Month and Character Counts. So it'll be a great program. So we'll see you next Friday. With that, we're adjourned. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.